Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to the Unconventional Therapist Guide to Nothing. My name is Dave, and I am joined here with my co host, Greg, my co host with the most.
I knew you were gonna say that. That's a very Beetlejuice thing to say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was going to say my co hostess with the mostest, and then I
Yeah,
thought you
yeah.
would get offended and storm off, and I'd be doing this all alone.
The microphone's just swinging back and forth.
And then I had a quick thought of like, but if I did this all alone, I would get all the glory.
Dave, you do sound a little raspy.
Is it like sexy raspy or
Yeah, I
like,
was gonna, well, I don't know if I would have described it as sexy, but you're going to go ahead and describe it as sexy. I'm not gonna disagree. It sounds good. It sounds good.
okay.
It's
Is
better.
it, is it giving
We're,
you chills and
it's
tingles?
10 out of 10 nasal. And the only reason why I say that is because we're typically both of us. I mean, I'm sitting at a 9 at baseline. So when I get
I don't think I'm much better, but I could be. I don't know.
Oh,
In
you're
my
better.
my eyes, it's
You're a
bad
seven.
always.
Seven
It's a
nasal.
seven.
I'm like a 9. It's
We're
intense.
like Seinfeld at
Yeah, we're
baseline.
like, hey, let's start. Let's make everyone listen to our voices.
What's the deal with cornflakes?
We sound like Ray Barone or whatever. Deborah, that guy. Um.
Hello,
Anyways,
Deborah.
I don't know where that went.
So yeah, you
So
guys can
get
see
back
what
to
kind of episode
Patreon.
this is going to be. All right, so just starting us off, as we do every week, we like to highlight the questions that people are asking up on our Patreon. Prompted questions, of course. Nobody's just
Mhm.
saying, "Hey, I want you guys to answer this," but hopefully one day they will. Hopefully, someone will get comfortable enough to just ask us a question and say, "Hey, can you answer this on your next episode?" But until then, I'll keep asking people. So, for anyone who hasn't joined the Patreon, please do. The community is growing. It's wonderful. Bunch of lovely people on there. I'm really enjoying it.
I'm loving it too.
Greg's loving it. Ba-da-ba-ba-da. All right. So our first question comes from Kylie. I'm gonna try to shorten it a little bit, just to kind of save some time. So basically, there's a question here about GLP-1s that constantly activate the reward system in the brain. Uh, People with disordered personalities feel compelled to cause chaos and harm on others in their reward systems get activated. One would think it would help someone with sadism or narcissism or ASD. Are they talking about autism spectrum? That one I'm not sure.
Maybe antisocial.
Oh yeah, all right. My mind went elsewhere. You can tell
Yeah.
my background a little bit there. And however, I have seen in my last relationship, it made that this diagnosed person much more crueler version than before, just a bit more anhedonic. I know I said that wrong. Like no matter how abusive he is, it was not enough anymore. Any studies on this or any thoughts? And they basically were asking because this is like a not a highly researched area. But I did look. So we're talking about GLP-1s, which, Greg and I are both under the understanding that we're talking about like Ozempic and things like that, right?
Right.
Greg? So I did just Google really quickly, and yeah, obviously like, that's not research, but this was like a last minute thing. There is actually like some discussions starting about like personality changes that are happening with some of these, how it can like worsen depression, make people more irritable. So I mean, if you're thinking about those negative changes in some
Right.
personalities, you can kind of almost see how those could start to impact people who already have like these personality disorders or just kind of like prone to these negative personality
Yeah,
traits,
or
right?
are they designed to reward behavior that's not typical with your personality in a sense like so if you like to eat a lot, maybe it's designed like maybe is it urge control? So I don't know enough about these medications to know exactly what's going on there. Is it just that you don't feel the urge to eat as much, or is it do something? Is there a different reaction with food? I don't know. I'm wild, Kylie. I would say I'm like interested in this now,
Yeah.
and it's become so popular that even like I'm even like confused sometimes because it's like Serena Williams, who I think of as a fit person, is on one of these commercials like injecting herself with a GLP-1, and I'm like, why the hell does she need it? Do I need it? It makes you feel like now this is for everybody. I thought this was a sort of an extreme case, but I guess that's not the case
it,
anymore.
and like I know we're getting off track with what the original question was, but like, have you ever thought of a time where we're just so blatantly seeing people misuse a medication or using it for reasons that are not what its intention is for. Um,
It's like a
Other
diabetes
than
thing,
this,
right?
yeah, it's a diabetes medicine, but I mean, its intention is to help people with like another part of it is also obviously to help people with weight loss
Yep.
who need it for reasons, but we're like in our face seeing celebrities using it who at baseline probably don't qualify for what most of us would need to qualify in order to be able to have it prescribed. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and it's sort of sending that message over and over again that like the easy way out message, not and I'm not a huge fan of that. I think like your mood would be much improved if there was like I don't know, and then of course there's cases where like every effort is made and the person couldn't do it, and there's some like biological component there. But I don't think that's the case with Serena Williams. We'll just say
Right.
that.
So
Um,
so back to like what the actual question's asking about how like exacerbating or increasing these negative personality traits for individuals who maybe have like you know some sort of personality disorder. I think just based on like the little information I gathered, it does kind of make sense that maybe you would see someone be more more cruel, more verbally abusive if they're having that sort of reaction where it's like making their mood worsen. Because we all know that like people with, for example, like borderline personality, if you feel like shit inside, you want to make other people feel like shit, right? It's like causing chaos because you feel like chaos is inside. So you can kind of think about that and put it in terms of, how if this is causing that, you might see
What
an
about, I
increase.
mean, this is why it'd be a fun sort of topic because it's like, what about that sort of person? And the only thing sort of holding them back from their cruelty was this sort of sense of inferiority. And now this newfound confidence sort of releases some kind of,
Oh yeah.
it
Yeah.
it doesn't even have to it doesn't have to even have to be personality disorder. It could just be like, this person's a jerk, which is,
I think that
we forget that's a thing.
yeah, I mean, like, do you know people who have lost a significant amount of weight and then you like seen personality change in them?
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's not always for the
Absolutely.
best.
Yeah, absolutely. Chris, my cousin. You think so
Yeah,
beautiful?
Chris, you jerk.
Yeah, you think so beautiful now? You think you're better than me?
You slim jerk.
You look good though, Chris. You don't
Keep
listen.
up the great work. We're proud of you.
Yeah, he doesn't listen.
You jerk.
Yeah.
All right. The
So
next.
next question. I like this one. Rachella, is that what it said? Rachella? Okay. Sorry if I got that wrong. But anyways,
It's Coachella.
what was your favorite topic you've researched for this podcast? What a great question. So for me, I think I'm always going to lean towards the story based, the spookier ones, the fringe ones.
Oh,
I mean, the Mercy Brown. Maybe there's a ghost story one that Dave and I did a while back. That was really fun. Immurement, people being sealed up in walls. Also, I think the Hidden Women one was pretty good.
yeah. Actually, that one came up. I mean, I wouldn't say it was one of my favorites, but it definitely came up as a more enjoyable one than I thought it was going to be. I enjoyed the stories that we each did. Um, Yeah, Hoodoo. I mean, I mention it pretty frequently, but I really enjoyed that. Robert Johnson one I enjoyed a lot too.
Oh yeah.
That
Yeah,
was a
I enjoyed
fun research one. Um,
Yeah, I enjoyed that one a lot too. I enjoyed the fall, the Paradise Lost one. I think we had great conversations with that.
I enjoyed the Pied Piper.
I love the Pied Piper.
That was a
That's
lot of
buried in
fun.
there
That one.
somewhere.
I didn't even like when we first like threw that one out. I was like, yeah, that will be like an easy one. I don't even know where that will go. And then I actually really enjoyed the
Yeah.
story more as I thought about it.
And
Yeah,
weirdly, I enjoyed Alice in Wonderland last week.
yeah. Oh, yeah, I agree.
That was a
But
fun
I
one.
don't think any of them got me as actually Eileen Warnos. Obviously, I was really into that,
Yeah, you were
maybe a
into
little
the
bit too
culties
much.
ones. You almost
I
joined
was gonna
Heaven's
say
Gate.
Heaven's
Oh, the Billy
Gate.
Milligan one was great. That had some
That
legs.
was a good one. Yeah. So I mean, if it was something I already had an interest in, and it just like was so much fun researching it, I would definitely say like Heaven's Gate, Eileen Warnos. Those were probably my top two. But yeah, there were so many others that we just mentioned that I wasn't like maybe super amped to do the episode, but then as I we started doing it, it was like, wow, this is actually a lot of fun.
Yeah,
And
kind of
that
cool. Oh, the
Stigmata
Final
was
Girl
fun
one. I
too.
mentioned that one recently.
Oh, you enjoyed that one?
I did. I did enjoy that one.
Oh, well, let me ask you this. Did you enjoy the monsters one, the Universal Monsters one? Because I know
Yes.
I made you watch movies that were pretty
I
boring
think
in
that
your
one
opinion.
was actually so we did the Universal monsters and then
The modern monsters
the
one.
modern ones, which was great. But like the Universal was really cool because I would have never in my life watched those. And you know, so good, not great. I'll say.
So,
All right,
I mean,
Annalyn, of
essentially
course.
almost every topic we end up enjoying pretty much, but like those are probably the tops right there.
Those are up there.
One last question. So this is from Annalyn. What is your greatest achievement and what is something you are striving to achieve next? That's a tough one.
That is a tough one.
Greatest achievement. Um, I don't know, Greg. What would you say yours is?
I
Oh, you're gonna
mean,
go with something sappy. My children.
no, I won't say anything. I mean, I teaching a class was always a goal of mine. It's sort of lost its luster, as you do something for a long period of time. But that to me was really big. Becoming licensed was a big achievement, I think, for the both of us. That was a big deal. That was a turning point.
Yeah.
You know, the small, like the big victories with patients is always big for me. You know, when you see a real change in people, that's always good. Striving to achieve next. I'd honestly like to create our own sort of framework of therapy. That's like my next goal.
Yeah. So as far as my achievements, there's just so many.
I know where to start.
No, I agree with you. I think like accomplishing a goal that I probably never thought I was even like intelligent enough to do,
Hmm.
such as completing my master's program, getting licensed and all that stuff. I never years ago I never would have thought I was smart enough to be able to do all that. And I don't think it's about intelligence, but I didn't even think I had the determination. So I think that was like a major achievement for me. Um, being like having the courage to do this stuff, like these projects that I do, and actually having multiple projects that I feel are, you know, successful enough to continue and worthwhile enough to continue. I think that's a big achievement of mine that I'm pretty proud of. Obviously, both things have a long way to go and a lot of growth that they're still going to go through. Uh, but like just even the fact that they're going years in, I think is a pretty big achievement to me, at least. And
Years.
what's that?
It's
Years in.
years,
Yeah,
right?
exactly. Yep. My other project is 2018, and this one started 2023,
No,
22,
for that too.
2022.
Maybe even if it's 22, it's early 22.
Yeah. So I mean, we're looking at years of these things, and you know, it's obviously a lot of it's time consuming and it's a commitment, and that's another thing I guess I'm proud of is being able to commit to things.
Mm.
Achievement, like you said with the framework thing, I just want to contribute something. So whether it's coming up with theoretical framework model, writing a book that like is actually noteworthy to communities that I'm belong to. I would love to combine my two communities in some way, like the
Yep.
horror world and my in the psychology world. But just having something that I contribute that I solidify and it's completed, that's my ultimate goal. That would be something I really want to achieve.
All right. That sounds pretty good.
Yeah.
All right. So why don't we get into this thing for those people that are can't wait for some more Carl Rogers, you know?
Yeah. So Carl Rogers. We did an episode on Carl Rogers last year at some point, I think.
Mhm.
Is that accurate? And we talked all about the guy and what he's all about, right?
We sure did.
His person-centered theory. And we're not going to do another overview of him because if you want to know more about Carl the Man Rogers, you're just going to go listen to that episode.
Yeah, and as I always have like a love-hate relationship with Carl Rogers. I really do. I'm always kind of on the fence on, and even as I like went through this, it's like there's times where I'm like I completely agree with that, and there's other times where I'm like, is this too touchy-feely? Because like, you know, sometimes I guess it all depends on the person. I like how much change do you affect with Carl Rogers? I mean, I guess it's hard to say. I think that like I keep changing my mind about it. But this to me, like this there's a seven stage process for his like person-centered therapy, and like it takes you from a place where I like stage one where you're probably not even going to get into therapy until you're like at a stage three or something like that. That's the way I kind
Sure.
of read this,
Sure.
you know?
Well, I
Uh,
mean, like who comes to well, let's talk about stage one in a second and then talk about who this might be. But yeah,
okay.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, no, no. So essentially, yeah, we should just get into these stages. But this, it's more. It's funny because this is like a process for self-actualization to essentially become more, I don't know, in a way, psychologically flexible. So it reminds me of acting that way. Like by the end, you're more open to the emotions that you're gonna feel. You welcome them instead of pushing them away, and you're also feel a lot more in control in your life and authentic. And when they say authentic, it's not like I found myself. I think authentic, as I understand it, as Carl Rogers is talking, is this like authenticity to him is just I don't know, just understanding that that self, quote unquote, is constantly shifting and your thoughts and your emotions are constantly shifting and they don't really have a whole lot to do with yourself. They're more suggestions and not instructions, and we don't have to be compelled by them or live in fear of them or avoid them and just like kind of let everything happen and make your decisions based on I don't know what. It almost feels like there's a soul element in this, you know? But I could be way off on that. All that said, let's get into stage one. This is where, like, it's called fixity and defensiveness. So clients are distant from their feelings. They avoid personal responsibility, which is a theme for Carl Rogers, which I find interesting. Um, because a part of these things, as we'll see, is really accepting responsibility for your moods, for your emotions, for even the things that have happened to you, which I find interesting, but also a through line throughout a lot of these things because it's like maybe the circumstances in your life aren't your fault, but they should be your responsibility because if they're not your responsibility, whose are they, right? If you don't say, I'm going to live a good life despite my emotions, my feelings, the things that have happened to me, then then you're at the whim of everyone else. Everything's everyone else's,
Right.
you know. So anyways, stage one. So someone in stage one is, I guess, what we would call stuck, and we hear that word a lot. You're not interested in therapy. You're not able to communicate properly. You're, you're not able to do some like self-exploration or self-examination, which is a hugely important thing. You have a tendency to resist and self-protect. So there's this Dave's favorite word is a huge part of this, avoidance, or least favorite word. I mean, depends.
Favorite.
Oh, okay. Low likelihood, no real dialogue, deep-seated distrust of others, making, open and honest dialogue like essentially impossible. So at this stage, um, this person's going to change this topic. They're gonna silence others. They're gonna leave the room when things get difficult. Um, there's people who will feel like they can't change. There's people who feel like there's no reason for them to change. There's people that'll feel that it's everyone else's fault or they're even
Sure.
too old to change, you know?
Sure. So essentially, you pose the question of like, would someone even come in if they were in like this stage or even the
Yeah,
next one? Um, Possibly not, right?
possibly not.
Probably not. Most likely not. However, sometimes people get ultimatums. Sometimes there's court order. These are the type of people who come in this stage. Thinking recently, I took on a patient who
Uh,
said when he came in, like, why are you here? And he goes, my wife basically told me I have to. This is the last chance, last ditch effort. And if I don't do it, it's done. So what do you want to work on? I don't really know. I don't think there's really anything I need to work on. It's, just stuff that's going on. I just try to mind my own business. I'm like,
That's a
so
perfect example of stage one.
minding your own business got you into therapy. That's interesting. Let's talk
Why are
more
you
about that.
here? My
Yeah.
wife says I need to be here. Oh, so there's nothing. So you're good. Yeah, you know what I mean? So like,
And
you're
you
right.
notice what that's saying too. It's her thing. It's her
Yep.
fault.
Let's keep
It's
this
basically
away from
shifting
me.
the blame without
Right.
saying, yeah, that it's
It's
hers
almost
as
like
a
that
way of
question I've
shifting.
been loving to ask people, Dave, is there anything you're doing or not doing that's getting in the way of like your progress or your
Right.
goals or whatever? Like so almost say it, frame it where like, we could, is there anything that you could be working on that you're not? Is there anything that you know that you probably shouldn't be doing? Like these kinds of questions are important. And that's where we are in the first one. So
Yeah.
kind of like it's the onus is not on them yet. So the responsibility is not taken, which leaves them in a place like unchanged, you know?
Yeah.
And so it's like that person, like your new client, it's like, okay, um, you're talking about it that way, but is that I think ultimately that person's goal, if they're with you, is to um, get closer to their wife. And is taking
Yeah.
zero responsibility for this getting you closer or further away from your wife? Like what kind of steps do you really think you need to take here?
And if I'm sitting with that individual, my personal approach is going to be one of two things. First off, it's going to be rapport building. So I
Hmm.
don't sit there and argue with the person the whole time. I'm not going to sit there and say, no, 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 you're obviously doing something that's got
Hmm.
you here. I might push back a little bit, question, but for the most part, I want to establish a rapport so this person feels they can trust and that I'm there for them, which I am. And
Hmm.
the second thing is, let's see where this goes. So my main goal is also that they're going to return. So I don't want to push back so hard that they feel attacked. They feel like, oh, this guy doesn't believe anything I say, or he's trying to blame everything on me. So I want this person to come back and continue to work with me. I need to like focus in on like, well, also, what are the things that you're seeing? Because there's obviously things that you're seeing and not seeing. So what are you seeing? So I can gather that information. Do you have any strategies, Greg, that you would say for that you would utilize with a person like this?
No, I think that you're on right on target there, especially in the early sessions is always going to be kind of, that's where I am very Rogerian in the early stages, where
Yeah,
like you do want to build, because what good is it going to be if you're not gonna, you got to earn their trust to sort of and like get on their side, and you're not confronting them with the problem. You're sitting there with them, if I was Carl Rogers, and turning towards the problem with them, and like mirroring it them to them, and like kind of thinking of inventive ways to almost show it to them without being the one that's showing it to them,
yeah.
like helping them see it on their own,
Because
which is
we have
hard
to
to do.
remember, and we have to remember the whole like focus with person-centered theory is this uh, unconditional positive regard that you have for the patient, but that can't be felt if the patient feels like they don't trust you yet or that you're against them, right? So you
Yeah.
have to build rapport. You have to establish that baseline.
And almost like in gathering an aim with them too, because it's like that early stage, it's like, all right, well, the wife, obviously in that case, it's pretty clear that like the relationship with the wife's important, and so you want to like develop a vision of the future with them. Like, what is it? What do you ideally? What is this going to look like for you? What are you hoping to get out of this? And how can I help you get closer to her? Right? Or what do you think she would want? Like, that's another sort of. Anyways, we're getting too much into this. Um, this
Yeah,
patient that we're you know what I mean?
right.
We're gonna work out the whole treatment plan right here on the thing.
So and they've already not showed again.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think we got 3 or 4 sessions in, and I haven't seen them again, and they're just not ready.
They're not
So,
ready.
and it was nothing against our actually like our sessions were great. They were fine, but the person wasn't at a point where they were going to see the issues yet.
So stage two.
Stage two.
So
So in stage two, uh, you might start to see some expression of feelings. Those might begin, but they're still mostly unowned. You might start to see them described as like past events or externalized. So you're starting to see some progress, but it's slow, obviously. They're still defensive, putting up
mm,
walls, but they're more communicative and curious. So obviously, you've established the rapport. There's trust built there. They're ready to talk about things outside of themselves, and they can recognize feelings experienced in the past as objects, and they maintain an overall distance to them. Um, so it's they're able to identify it, but it's like I don't want to connect too closely to it yet.
Right.
So I don't
Right.
want to like be too vulnerable, I think is the key here with stage two. But it is progress because it's going in the right direction as far as where the talks are going. There's still very little sense of like responsibility for the struggles and very little motivation to address them. So it's all the problems kind of still relate to the same thing. It's attributing your troubles to a certain thing versus like anything that you have responsibility over. So that would be stage two.
Okay, so stage three. Actually, should we say anything about stage two? I guess it's like I'm glad you made the because when I heard Carl Rogers like sort of describing it as like viewing things from the past as like objects, you know, I couldn't really understand exactly what it meant, but I guess the way you described it that as trying to not connect with it,
Yeah.
like emotionally, it makes a lot of sense to me now. Like
Yeah, you're
that.
staying distant to it. Like it's a thing that happened, but I can talk about it so remotely that I don't feel emotion about it, right?
Yes. Okay. And so stage three is sort of a continuum of that. Obviously, this whole thing's a continuum, but this is when you're still kind of seeing things in that same way, like objects of the past, like experiences are like they're there, but you're not really connected to them. But there's starting to be a little bit of acceptance and there's starting to be a little bit of responsibility in stage three. So this is like self-inquiry starts to begin at this stage. They start to engage um, in the therapeutic process. So this is when therapy is really starting to happen in stage three. Slight improvement in communication. It's largely external still and not really about the self yet. It's still kind of outside of them. It's you know, if they're in a terrible relationship, like you're I'm not saying that your person's in a terrible relationship. I'm saying if they're in a difficult relationship, they might
Yeah.
say things like, "Look, I tried my best with her. I love her. I do everything I can." And that's sort of like separating yourself from it and not accepting responsibility, but also understanding that there is a problem in that relationship, right?
So stage three is all about identifying problems.
Identifying problems.
Actually, stage two starts that process, but stage three is more of like these are the current problems that are happening.
Yes, the identifying of problems becomes a little bit more precise and um, focused, right? So again, though, Dave, still not a huge amount of responsibility yet. Just there's an emerging emotional awareness of the past experiences, but no real connection yet. Um, you know, there's you're starting to hear the people talk about guilt and shame, things that they weren't talking about before. Their personal construct of themselves remains sort of like rigid and factual and not really in the realm of emotions and how you felt. And that was always hard for me to kind of discuss with people, talking about how they felt around certain, experiences in their life. And for those people who are kind of on the fence about that, how you feel about things. So it can be really confusing if you listen to this podcast because often we'll talk about you want to focus more on the things you want to do and less about the way you want to feel. That's true, but feeling is also like a really good indicator for, whether you're in the right spot, whether you're on the right track. These are all important things. And also like the people who are important to you. It's not just the things like you don't remember all the lessons your father taught you or your favorite teacher taught you or like the most important people in your life taught you, but you do remember the way you made them feel.
Right.
And maybe if you can remember that a little bit, like when you're going back into your life, it's revealing, I think.
Even more than that, though, Greg, when you're in a relationship with someone
Yeah.
and you're trying to resolve conflict, solve issues, identifying how you feel versus just talking about the things that are happening is part of the key of
Hmm.
conflict resolution. And this, so, you and I both have experience now working on interpersonal relationship skills with individuals. The whole focus of that group is bringing down the barriers and getting people to talk about how they feel
Hmm.
versus just behaviors, right? And it takes a long time, as you can see with people, to get to that point where they can say, I feel this way, or this
Yeah.
made me feel this way, or when you
Perfect.
said that,
Perfect.
I felt this. Because people will not do that until they feel, I don't know, until they get to a point where they're being completely vulnerable.
Yeah, and then when you can kind of understand that, like I felt this way when this happened, then it kind of changes the way you treat other people too, because
Yes.
it's like then you can start having that conversation in your relationship, like, how am I making this person feel? Because ultimately, that's like the most important thing.
Yeah.
I'm doing this and it's making me feel like this. Then now I have to shift my behavior because this behavior is making them feel a way that's not,
Right.
which is not my intention.
So instead of just saying like, "Oh, you did this and then I did that because you did this," it's like,
Hmm.
"No, you did that and that made me feel this way. So because I felt this way, I started to do this thing and
Yeah.
that made you." And then like starting to talk about the reason emotionally you did something versus like tit for tat spite behavior. It's like, "No, I was really hurt. And then I said this thing because I was hurt and it came out of a place of hurt. And I want you to understand that." That's a much more productive conversation than like, "No, I said this because you said this to me." Like
Mm.
that sounds it. I understand also at some point it's like, well, couldn't those things be interpreted? Right. But how many times do we interpret things wrong? Especially when there's conflict involved, right?
And then when your feelings are like predominantly driving your behavior and you're not even sure why you felt that way, and now you're like pulling, you're acting on them in your relationship, and now this is driving you further apart instead of you're feeling bad because you want to be closer to the person, so you do something to make you even further from the person. There's just like I guess like an emotional intelligence that starts to evolve in these next few stages, I think.
Absolutely. Yeah. So stage four, I think that's where you really start to see the most change. It's most evident, it feels like. I mean, all through this, we've seen some small changes, but in stage four, they begin to experience and describe feelings in the present. Um, Often it's out of fear or self-criticism or reluctance to take full ownership, uh, but they really become more actively involved in this therapeutic process that we're trying to develop here. So they might take more agency and responsibility in situations, and that might lead to more dramatic feelings, and beginning to make some life-changing insight. So it's a really important stage to be in.
You right there?
Sorry, I keep coughing and I keep
Okay.
putting myself on mute. Um, so the communication, it flows much more freely about the self, and just feelings and the meanings of everything kind of intensify. I'm struggling with the long-winded
It's
descriptions.
okay.
uh so there's still not like a significant amount of motivation to overcome the problems, but
Mhm.
self responsibility begins to emerge. And I think that this is like the thing I always say is like awareness of problems is always the first step, right?
Yes.
So it's like we've got an awareness already, but now we're actually taking ownership of what the issues are. So that you can kind of see how the progression of these steps is happening. And at this point, we're really starting to attach emotion and responsibility to the things that are happening, the issues that are at play, and we're identifying like this is my part in where things are right now.
Okay. Which is important, right? Like so it really is starting to it's really, you know, I don't want to say that it's coming about the self because, you don't want to spend too much time like focused on the self because like it's an ever-changing thing as Carl Rogers would have you understand. But like the responsibility is a key word here. Even Franco said across from the Statue of Liberty should be a statue of responsibility, and I think that that's true in so many senses. I
Oh
think he
man.
meant it a little
Yeah.
differently.
Well, I love that statement because, that's the thing I think that's so missing today. Everybody wants to talk about freedoms and independence, and nobody wants to ever talk about responsibility and what that actually means. Like, sure, you have the freedom and the right to do a lot of things, but you also have a responsibility. And we have lost a lot of sight to that. But that's probably for another time.
No, yeah. So that type of responsibility for sure, right? And I guess it's a similar type of responsibility. Like you have a responsibility to yourself to discover agency, to live not because of the things that happen to you, not because of your thoughts, not because of your emotions, but because like incongruence, that's a huge thing for Rogers that comes up over and over again. Like, are you being congruent with your values? Are you living
Yeah.
a life that's congruent with your values?
I'm glad you just said that, Greg, because I think that's what really is starting to develop in stage four. We're
Yes.
starting to notice the things we don't feel good about. Like we
Mhm.
said, like some of these feelings might be like negative feelings, but that identifies I don't feel good about these things, right? So that's the incongruence there. Incongruence meaning the what is it, the action and the outcome don't match or something like that. It's like it doesn't the action doesn't match your values. Like
Right.
how you're acting doesn't match your values. When you act in accordance to your values, that's congruence and that feels okay. When you act out of line with your values, it causes incongruency, and that's usually how you start to feel negative emotions. Just it doesn't sit right, guilt, shame, all
Yeah.
those
Yeah.
things.
Am I being someone I admire? We use that all the time. Now it's funny, like how we're both picking up on this values language, but the values language isn't really in this yet. But
No,
I don't know if that's like just something that's like in us, but for some like it's between the lines here. Like even in stage five, it's like owning your feelings. And I like that term owning your feelings because it's like it suggests that it's this phase when you're starting to understand that your problems are, they're also contributions. They're also there's good things about negative emotions and there's good things about positive emotions, and allowing them when you stop sort of denying yourself the ability to feel negative emotions, you start to realize that they're not as impactful and as long lasting as you might think. So it's like I use the metaphor of putting my kids in a closet. There's it's gonna or in a room. I mean, give them a little more room. If they're gonna wreak havoc in there, right? Or even
metaphor, quote
yeah,
unquote.
yeah. I'm not doing that right now so they were quiet. No, I'm just like if there's a bee in your car, like if you have an eyeball on it, it's a lot safer and better environment than if you have no idea where it went. I think that's maybe even better sort of way to describe it. It's about allowing like having some form of acceptance with your feelings and not being sort of controlled by your past, not being controlled about the worries of the future, just allowing things to kind of wash over you like waves and then make your decisions with your values and not predominantly driven by emotion, which is I'm so like it's like wildly interesting to hear like Carl Rogers kind of frame this stuff in the way he has because it's just I don't know. The more I read all these therapeutic approaches, the more we go back into them, the more they sound like each other over and over and over
Of
again,
course. Yeah.
right? I mean, because it's borrowing
But
from
isn't
everybody.
isn't that good in a way? Because think about when we were in school and we suddenly had that realization, like this is all just people kind of making it up as they go.
Yeah, with
Like
different words.
yeah, with different words.
You know
But
what
I mean,
the fundamental form of therapy? You messaged me this week, a little behind the scenes about hero's journey, and it's like, okay, so that's something this monomyth where it's like every hero, male and female, sort of have this trajectory. There's some adversity, then there's some self-discovery, then they have a mentor, and then they have to do something hard, and then they have to go on a journey. And it's like it's almost they're all set up in a way. It's like the archetype of the human experience. And I think that every culture has very, very similar, if not exactly the same myths, because that's the framework on how to live, right? Get action, get up, go do things, be the best. Like there these archetypes that are here for a reason. Like be the best version of yourself that you could possibly be. Like all these stories, which ones appeal to you? All right, that's highlighting your values. Be that. So when we say like they're all borrowing from something, in a way, are they all borrowing from that?
yeah, pretty
Right?
much.
It's like sort
Yeah,
of that, right? I
right.
think in a lot of ways. Oh
Yeah.
man, there's so much work to do with that. We don't even. That's a great episode too, if you ask me.
So,
Stage six.
stage six, right? We're on six. Yeah.
Yeah.
So with stage six, there is some acceptance and integration going on here. So we got this stage where feelings are being fully experienced in the immediacy of the moment, and the self becomes a process rather than a fixed entity. This stage also starts the irreversible shift of the individual's mindset. So that's a great moment when the mindset starts to um, kind of go in the direction that you've been trying to get it to go this whole time. And it becomes more observant and it flows more naturally. And the person is able to abstract themselves of a situation to become freer of their past impulses and the behaviors that they typically would engage in. So as this happens, there's a desire to own feelings and be authentic, right? So expression becomes more open, it becomes more relaxed, um, and they just become more sensitive and heightened as an individual, I think. So um, problems are not seen as problems. The person now develops a deep trust in themselves and their feelings, and they're happy to deal with things as they arise. I think that this is just the person becoming more open and engaged in problem solving and conflict resolution. Like they don't just want to let problems exist. They want to now work on the problems. They want the problems to decrease. They have a goal, I think, for themselves. Like they want to do things differently. I have a really great example of this.
Okay.
I've uh I've worked with this one individual for quite some time now. And they're such a great person. I really, really enjoy working with this individual. But he had a temper, like, and we uncovered where that temper came from. We uncovered where a lot of that anger would come from. But like his family, certain members of his family, or people out in the public, like anything went wrong, and he would just snap. He would just, and he would like, he kind of like always wore it as like a chip on his shoulder, like you don't want to cross me, or like you don't want to like say the wrong thing to me, or I'm just going to explode. And then he stopped wanting to do that when he realized how problematic it was. And we got to this point and he started to think about things ahead of time. And we started to like problem solve, like, what else could you do differently? And he started to actively utilize those skills. And it was such a change in him because he started to like get proud of himself for resolving problems, for not getting conflict, for not having engaging in conflict. It was like such an awesome change. And to see the person feel like such a more evolved version of themselves. It
Mm.
was awesome. I absolutely loved that moment with that person.
So, and then as we go through these, it starts to kind of reveal itself to me like this is sort of a beautiful best case scenario sort of process for therapy. But I think what's missing with Rogers a lot of time and why like CBT and DBT and ACT really kind of came to the forefront, even because this is sort of like in a lot of ways feels a lot of like it feels very psychoanalytical. There's no like steps and Carl Rogers has like one intervention. I mean, there's really not a whole lot of guidance to kind of pass you through these seven stages, and we haven't even got to the seventh one yet. So that's my critique of that. So it's like borrowing this from like as a framework of where almost like a guideline of where you should be in progression, almost like a metric, as opposed to following a certain like if you notice yourself vaguely flowing through these stages on some level, then it's like okay, so I'm at least I'm like in on the right process, but there's no real sort of insight on how to get there.
And I love that. Your
Okay, all
critique
right, cool.
is actually my what I love about this
Okay,
because I
creativity, right?
almost feel like it comes from this point of view. Like we're all in this profession. We
Hmm.
should have the skills to work someone there. We all do it differently. I don't need to hear this framework tell me how to do this. I should be able to guide that person there because that is my role. That is my profession. And I actually think it's a vote of confidence in Carl Rogers to
Very
share
cool.
this with other people in this profession because it's like I trust that you can get there and you're going to do it in your unique fashion. And I think that that is so huge if you think about it. I there's no cookie cutter way to work with individuals. So the way that I'm going to get this person there is going to look a lot different than the way I get another person there.
It's also useful to kind of be like, oh, all right, like we were thought we were kind of getting towards step four here, but it looks like we're regressing a little bit.
Right.
Like it's sort of a
And you might have to readjust and you might have
yeah.
to take a different approach. And I think Carl Rogers understands that because he's very individual person centered, right? It's like I got to get to know you and I'm going to get this individual person there and what that takes might look completely different than what it takes another person. That's my personal takeaway from this, or that's what I want to believe is
Yeah.
Carl Rogers' intention because I think that's what person centered is really all about. It's about understanding that each person is a unique individual and every therapist is a unique individual.
Exactly. And so because we're all unique individuals, sometimes they use two different sort of things to describe it. It's like one is if you have this tangled up fishing line, and if you untangle it, it can stretch further than you ever thought. And that's kind of what we're doing here, like almost like going back and
Yeah.
seeing where we are and seeing what sort of needs what's got all mucked up and where we need to kind of like unwind a little bit and so we can stretch out a little bit. And then some people I think genuinely feel like this is what I want to do. This is where I want to be. How do I get there? Like what's getting
Yeah.
in the way? Like almost like the Uber. like they don't need to know where you were. They just want to know where the hell you need to be. And sometimes that's, sometimes if you get to where you need to be, the past is what got you there. So you don't like, you know what I mean? Like it kind of created you in a sense. There's so many different ways to look at this, but I think like honestly, this as like a chart, it almost has like a conceptualizing a person. Like where are they on this? And how could I get them as close to stage seven as possible? And that's a good way into segue into
Yeah,
stage
tell
seven,
us about it.
which is like, essentially flowing, like a flow state and autonomy, which is, someone said to me once, it attitude and agency, the double A's. Autonomy you can switch out with agency. You can make it triple A if you want. I don't know. Um, but like the ability to feel like you're in control of your life, in control of yourself, and a fully functioning person who could trust your inner experiences, accept them, and not sort of hide from them or distract from them or treat them maladaptively with whatever you can like sort of use your imagination for that. They they understand their reality. So there's a Stephen Hayes act portion of this where there has to be a level of acceptance of like where you are in your life, what's possible for you, how you can make the best out of your potential situation and your limits, like all kinds of like like there's a reality to that, and then there's this ability to I like the word. So Carl Rogers is using the observe your feelings in free flow, let them come in, let them come out, like no stopping them. Almost like this is the stage where you're like in a sitting crisscross applesauce and floating above a rock. But I think what's really going on here is if anybody, and most of us have, had been in the throes of like a mental like rumination or racing thoughts and stress, it's the ability to sort of like notice all that and stay outside of it. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
and accept it, not try to push it back. Just kind of like noticing it and be like, oh, I'm a little overwhelmed right now. What worries can I sort of address? Which ones are free floating? I have no control over, and sort of like just this acceptance of who you are, what you can control, what you can't. Just uh, a word that comes up a lot is awareness, and I think that's like um, you're free, you're clear. This is the seventh like sort of place. So this is like Maslow and who is another humanist. This is like the self-actualization phase, which some people often people are like, is that even possible to reach that phase? And if it is, how
Yeah.
long can you stay there before you blow out a tire or you get a divorce or the bills get too high? So it's like, but I think like trying to get to a place of awareness and acceptance and knowing that your emotions are like the weather and they come and they go and they don't always have this immediacy to them. Um, then I think that's a good place to sort of strive for. And once you get there, I think you have they use the word irreversible a few times, like in stages six and seven. And once you've sort of understood and allowed for difficult emotions to wash over you, even if that doesn't mean you'll never be depressed again, it doesn't mean you'll ever be anxious again, but you'll have an awareness that it's temporal and you will get through it. And you sort of already, by allowing your feelings to be there and by better understanding your feelings, you know that you'll be able to weather the storm better than before.
Sure.
I think
Um,
that's essentially the seventh stage. What do you think,
yeah.
Dave?
Yeah. And like you were saying, I think an important thing for people to remember that often like happens at some point in there's going to be another bump in the road in life, right? There's always bumps
Uh-huh.
in the road. And it's really important for people when they get to the seventh stage and things are going well to also understand and expect that there will be future challenges. I can't tell you how many times I've heard someone who's gotten to a fantastic point in life suddenly hit with like a rough patch and they feel like, oh my God, I've regressed or I'm really stepping backwards. It's like, no,
Of
this is just
course.
life. This is life. This happens.
Things happen. I remember, like, I don't want to keep bringing it up, but like when I had my I can't sleep issue, that was like
Yeah.
I mean, it really knocked me back. Like and of course I've got like other challenges. There's been a tough year. Like lost important people, and I gotta say, man, that like all that coupled around the same time, it was tough. And I felt like maybe I might have got bumped down to about three and had to kind of
Yeah,
regroup. But I
sure.
knew I could. I knew I would get there because I had done the work with the feelings and everything like that. I guess another thing that stuck out to me that I really appreciated this, doing a lot of work with like, personality disorder and stuff like that. It's blaming others was like really an important piece of this. Letting go of that.
Yeah.
Um, you know, because what's the
Well,
alternative? Like everybody's in control of your well-being forever?
it's so funny when we have we do two types of blaming because and they're both really problematic. So some people will just blame everybody else for everything that's happening, right? And then you have the other people that blame everything on themselves.
Uh-huh.
You know, when
That's true
they're
too.
telling you something, it's like oh, I did this wrong, or it's my fault that they're like, you have those two extremes, and it's somewhere in the middle is like the right way to be. You know, it's like acknowledging what you contributed, but also it's okay to like acknowledge what others are contributing because you have to know what you're working with. So
Right. And
you
I
have
don't
to
know
have
what
this
it's about.
awareness.
Like it's not saying that these things are your fault because it can be other people's fault. It's
Yes,
saying it's not their responsibility to make your life better because of it. Like your life and
exactly.
your well-being and your whatever you want to call this, right? Self-actualization, enlightenment, whatever, contentment. I refrain, occasional happiness, whatever you want to, whatever, however you want to describe it. It is not, it's your responsibility to try to get there.
You know,
And it's your
it
power.
reminds me of that psychologist that we worked with who would talk about the people that would come in and just complain about their spouse all the time. And then he'd be like, well, so the way you describe your spouse, it makes me not like him. So it makes me wonder why you're still with him.
Yeah.
It's kind of like that. It's like, well, you can only complain about things for so long until if it's really that way, then the question really becomes like, why are you still in that situation? Why haven't you taken yourself out? So,
Well,
at
so
some point you
they'll
do
either
have to
talk
look.
about that if that's like genuinely like, or they'll immediately come to the defense of that person and be like,
Right.
well, they're this, or and then there's that. You know what I mean?
Right. So
Or I can't
there's
because of
more than
this.
just
Yeah.
what they're telling you at times.
Right.
So yeah. All
Yeah.
right. I think that that wraps up our stages. I would love if people have feedback about these stages or further questions, let us know. Hit us up with some comments so maybe we can actually hit that up in a bonus episode next week or something like that.
Hmm.
If people want any further explanation or clarification.
Yeah. I mean, so obviously, Rogers is not what I've been spending the most time on. Um, I guess, Dave, if I had a question, like, where do you land nowadays in terms of theoretical approaches? Like, do you like if you had to give me top three, what are we talking about?
I mean, I feel let's see. I mean, I'm still pretty authentic to who I've been gravitated towards for a while now. Like, it's at times I'm using some CBT, some DBT, some ACT, ACT. So
Either
I
way.
kind of still like, and then like, it really does depend on the individual. So it's like who's sitting across from me, what's going to be helpful to this individual. Uh, I mean, yeah, I've been finding myself kind of just navigating those strategies mostly within my also with my like, existential theory once in a while, depending on the individual.
I think
Um,
existentialism holds a special place in both of our hearts and maybe always will.
yeah, yeah,
Um,
I love to do a little bit of that work, but I mean, I feel like recently, if I'm being totally honest right
and be
now,
totally honest.
a lot of my patient issues right now have been so focused on relationships.
Mm.
I'm finding myself utilizing a lot of like DBT conflict relate like
Okay.
interpersonal skills so much. So like as you know, things come in waves, or we tend to like have things like certain topics just suddenly it just seems to be coming up more and more. So like you kind of just gravitate towards what feels relevant, I guess. And that's kind of been everything lately, relationships. family relationships, intimate relationships, friendships. It's a,
Ultimately,
I
they're
mean, I
what?
guess that's always the case, but
Yeah.
right now it just feels like that's been super heavy. It feels a lot less in loneliness. Feels a lot less about some of the other stuff we've worked on with people in the past, and just right now it's just super heavy on that stuff.
Hmm. That's
Could be
interesting.
a time of the year, I guess, too.
I know because we're coming out of coupling, a cuffing season.
Sure.
So people are like, meh.
Yeah.
I mean, there's like a biological component to that. Um, that's like Splitsville season. Um,
Yeah.
mating season,
Mating season.
I guess, right? Yeah, no, so I mean, and then for me, if you say you were gonna ask me the same question, I'd probably say I'm still buried in the act thing. I think it's probably because of like the acuity that I'm working with now, where people have like tons of panic, tons of
Sure.
so CBT is going to be pretty strong. It's still going to stick around there a little bit. Because and I like it. I like when someone's coming with something pretty in your face that's like it's not like what are we working on? It's like I need this to stop kind of thing, right? Um, that kind of stuff. And then a lot of
Yeah.
trauma.
That's very like directive.
Right. Yeah, it is. And and I'm glad that like I'm sticking around with the outpatient because like I love that work too because it's even more difficult, I find.
Oh, for sure. I
Yeah,
think
I
it
find it's more
definitely is.
difficult and it keeps me sharp. It keeps your assessment because sometimes like the longer you're talking to someone, then stuff starts to reveal itself. And you're like, whoa, 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 where's this coming? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Um,
Oh,
so
I guess like interpersonal theory because of the group work, but it's also seeping into my individual work quite a bit. There's a lot of it going on right
I've
now.
been using
So
a lot of stories, whether it's like legitimate literature or because I find like, your kids don't lie. Well, they do. My kids do lie, but they are less likely to lie if they know the story, The Boy Who Cried Wolf, than if I just tell them lying's bad.
right.
So I've been noticing that like if you tell people a story about something similar that was going on with them, and how that person, it's almost like the roadmap to how they get out of it. It just like that narrative sometimes I find is so helpful for people. And who doesn't love a good story, I think. So I've been leaning into that kind of stuff a little bit, telling the same four stories multiple times a
To
day.
anyone who will listen.
Yeah, anyone will listen. Listen to my story, you'll feel better. But yeah, Dave, I guess you're right. I guess that's the 7 stages. Seven, interesting number too. Biblical.
Sure.
And look at that, we didn't even talk about current events, which there are many. But we don't do that, I guess. So
Yeah.
I guess that's it for us, Dave.
All right.
So you can get some Vicks on that nose of yours.
Yeah. Thanks. All right, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. I
All
hope
right.
you enjoyed all this, and I hope you have a great night. We'll see you next week. See you later.
See you later.